Beautiful. Good
Oh,
afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. And if you're in the here and now, we welcome you too. This is an interview that has been going for about a month. We've been trying to get together. I'm joined today by my good friend Ron Johnson, who I probably know more than anybody else in the UFO field. We met, I don't know, Ron, what was it 20 years ago? We with Marley at the conference and we went
right.
down there. And I heard you had a big story. I didn't know until just in the last couple of years what you've done, and you've actually recorded all this stuff. You have what, 700 pages of
Oh, a lot,
a lot of your
a
story.
lot.
You've had a lifelong story, and it's actually gotten a little more elaborate now because you had some new experiences and you told me about them, and I wanted to make sure I got that on record. But the first thing I want to get on record is a story that I don't know if you hear a lot of my interviews, but almost every interview that I do with you or that I've done with people in the last while is um, done where I talk about one or two of your stories. And I've always been fascinated. The one story I wanted to get for you from you today is a story that you told about flying the ship, because as I mentioned to you, Whitley Strieber wanted some witnesses, but rather than bringing people onto the show to tell one story, and it's in a 1 hour thing, to basically get you in, say, 3 4 minutes to tell the story of you flying the ship. And we get that, so I got that for the record, because that is I've written a book about it now, and you are one of the main witnesses that I had. So tell that story about flying the ship, because I've got now 36 other people who are telling the same story that you're telling.
Okay. This goes back to July 27th of 2009. Uh, I was starting to have quite a few encounters with the entity that I call LB that I've told you about.
Yeah.
And this one started out, this was the last encounter that I've had with LB,
Oh,
was flying the ship.
okay.
But I had gone to bed like previous encounters with him, and that beam of light appeared in the room and slowly moved across the living room. I was sleeping on the couch that night, and everything just kind of turned a fuzzy white, and I passed out like other encounters I've had with him.
Mhm.
And then I come to, I'm face to face with Elby. I mean, he's right. We're almost touching nose to nose.
Wow.
And it's just, it used to scare me, but it doesn't bother me anymore if I see him. And he tells me, it was like he was downloading information into me. It lasted, it seemed like a couple of minutes. And then everything turned a fuzzy white again. And it was like I pass out a second time.
Okay.
And I come to, I'm in this cubicle and I'm up on top, up by the ceiling in this great big room. And it's got to be a good 20 feet down to the floor. And there's other cubicles up there besides the one I'm in, and there's a person in each one. And I can see the entities down below. They're busy doing different things. And after a while, they kind of clear the room. They just, walk away into another part of this room that I'm in. And the cubicle I'm in, it's solid. It looks like it's made out of plastic, and it's clear, uh, or like glass, and it slowly descends down to the floor. And when it gets to the bottom, the end opens up, and LB is standing there. And he tells me to come out, and he gets right in my face again. It's like he's downloading information. And after a moment, he tells me it's time that you find out what's been happening to you.
Okay.
But he says for right now, you have to go back into the cubicle because he says we're going to go on a little trip and without you being in there, it would kill you. So I go back in and sit down, and then I slowly raises back up. And I don't know how long I was up there, 2, 3 minutes or so. And then pretty soon, LB comes back into the room, and then I descend back down. And the end of the cubicle opens up, and I walk out. And LB tells me that this is when he tells me that you've been programmed to fly this ship. And he takes me over to this seat, and there's this great big plastic looking chair sitting in the middle of this room, and there's a like a virtual uh, dashboard console. And he tells me to sit down into the seat, and I'm looking at it, and it don't look very comfortable. Look like just a hard plastic, and it's got these big wide armrests on it, and it has these indentations and these holes in the end. And when I sit down, I'm supposed to lay my arms in the indentations and put my fingers in the hole. And when I do that, the end of this room, it opens up, and I can see outside, and I can tell I'm out in space, and I can see the earth kind of down in the lower corner. Tell, it's not very big. I can tell we're pretty far away from it. But he tells me that you're going to fly the ship. And so I said, well, what am I supposed to do? I said, and he says, it's all inside you. He says, you already know what to do. Just go inside yourself. Whatever you think, whatever you want to do, the ship will respond. And I'm just kind of wondering what the heck. And I thought to myself, I was thinking, I'd like to go out into deep space and see the Milky Way from a distance, from a far distance. And he tells me that at that time, he says, before we take off, he says, I want to warn you that you're going to feel some real heavy G-force. And then when we start to dimension hop, transversing the different dimensions, then it should go away. And so we started to accelerate. And Grant, I'm telling you, it was a roller coaster ride from hell. The G-force, I couldn't stand it. I thought I was going to pass out. It was just way too much to bear. And then pretty soon, the G-force went away. And you ever take a picture book and you just thumb through it, the pages real fast, and that's kind of what it looked like outside. And there was all these different like scenarios going on outside, and it was just like you take your thumb with a book and you just go scan through the pages real quick as you can. And that's what it was like. And it only seemed like it took like about a second, maybe a second and a half. It was just real quick. And then we come to a stop, and we're sitting out in space, and I can see the Milky Way galaxy off. Now, I know this is not the language of science, but this is what happened. And after a while, after looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, this is really awesome. you know, I just wanted to stay there and just stay in that environment. It was really awesome to witness. And then he told me, he says, we need to get back. We can't stay out here very long. And so I think about where we left and where the earth was located. And it was like a second later, I could feel movement again. And then we were back and I could see the earth kind of down in the corner.
Wow. Was there any G-force coming back, or was it different than
Yeah,
coming?
I felt some G-force coming back,
Yeah.
but it didn't seem to be as bad as going out. I don't know if it had anything to do with Earth's gravity or not. I don't know.
Wow.
But we got back and LB says, well, you know, it's time for you to go back. And I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay there. I really did. And everything turned to fuzzy white. And it was like I passed out again. And then I woke up. I was on the couch in my
Wow.
living room.
Can you describe the panel board? I don't think I heard that before. What did the panel board look like?
It was probably about, oh, 4 or 5 inches wide and probably about 2 foot long.
Okay.
And it was displaying these symbols that he's been forcing me to watch over the last couple years. And other than that, that's all that was on it.
Have you written out the symbols? Because if you follow the Twitter, you'll see there's a big discussion now about symbols, as if they discovered this thing. Is it?
Yeah, I've got some written down. Yeah.
Wow, I'd like to see those, because that's impressive. And describe how they're showing you these symbols. How are they doing this? Almost like you're
It's
being trained, right? And this was after 2009 in the LBN incident with flying the ship.
Yeah, this is between 2009 and well, actually between 2008 and 2009.
Okay.
And it would be the same way. I would start out, I'd be going to bed and I'd see that beam of light appear in the room. And then it was like I'd pass out. And then it's like I'd always be face to face with him when I would come to. And then I'd pass out again. And then I would find myself in this room, sitting on this armless chair, looking at what looks like a chalkboard, like when you was in grade school.
Hmm.
And these symbols would appear on this chalkboard in rows of three. There'd be 6 across in
Okay.
rows of three, and they'd change about every 2 or 3 seconds to a
Wow.
different symbol.
Did he ever describe to you what was going on, or
No, I'd ask him and ask him, and he just all he'd tell me is, you need to learn these. You're gonna learn them and watch them. And so
Wow.
I did. But
And
I,
that's been going on since about 2008. So you're an old timer at the symbol thing. Have you seen
oh
some of the
yeah,
symbols that other people are displaying, and do yours look the same?
I've seen some of them. Some of them look fairly similar.
Yeah. Wow.
And then there was a time when, oh gosh, oh, what the heck? I've had so many encounters, it's hard to remember them all, remember dates and stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember I asked LB, this was in an out of body experience that I had. Uh, LB was there and he was showing me this machine that allowed you to dimension hop, to transverse the dimensions. And I asked him where he was from, if they had a base on Earth. And these symbols appeared in my mind and I could read them. Like I knew what it said. It said Siskiyou. And he told me they had a base up by Mount Shasta
Oh, it's all
in
right.
the Siskiyou Mountains, but it was in another dimension. And they said that your government is trying to find it, but they said that it's completely hidden from them.
Interesting. I've never heard that story before. And describe LB, because there's I'm writing a book on whether it's extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, and there's what I call like strings. When you look at a photograph and suddenly you see a string and you go, something's wrong here. This thing's hanging from a string. Maybe it's not a real thing. And one of the things that I describe is what you've described is LB doesn't appear to have any muscles or tendons. And
No.
you can't move a leg or an arm without a muscle and a tendon. And it makes kind of weird. It's like, what's really going on here? I mean, why does he? So describe Albie to people, and we'll maybe stick a photo of your drawing of LB.
Oh, yeah, I don't have the photo with me.
Yeah,
It's
well, I
on my,
can we can add it on to the beginning or the end, or use it in the when
yeah,
we do the display or the advertisement for it.
okay. Yeah, he's about 5.5 foot tall, uh, real skinny, almost like a skin wrapped skeleton.
Yeah.
He's dark brown. He has a fairly large head. It's not really pointed at the chin so much like a gray or a tall white or anything like that.
Mhm.
But he had a bald head and he had three uh, like crowns that went across. There was one main one in the center and two smaller ones, one on each side. And real anorexic looking. I don't even know how he could even stand up. Uh, it was just like skin and bone.
Yeah. And you've only been in contact with LB what, since about 2000?
Since 2008 to
Oh, okay.
about 2009. But he came to me when I was in the hospital having my pacemaker put in. He came into my room. Uh, that's when he told me said the next time that you see me will be when I come to take you home.
Okay. And that was what, a couple of years ago, right?
That was a few years ago. Yeah.
Wow. And so before Albie, who were you dealing with before Albie?
Oh, geez. In 1968 in California, when we lived in California, Hermosa Beach, California, I went out and stayed with my uncles, two uncles. They had a horse ranch
Yeah.
outside of Riverside. And I had an encounter with, I don't know what it was. Uh, this one, LB doesn't feel bad, but this entity was had a real bad feeling with it. It felt like a demon.
Okay.
And he was like about 8 foot tall. His head touched the ceiling of the house we were in.
Okay.
And it had 8 foot ceilings. And he had a real sharp pointed jaw and a very, very small mouth and a petite nose, two holes where the ears would normally be. And it scared the hell out of me, when I woke up and he was standing there by the bed. And I closed my eyes and I just prayed to God. I prayed to God. I just kept praying to God for him to go away, go away. And it was a bad feeling with him. And when I opened my eyes, he was gone. But everybody says that if you don't want these to happen, pray to God and they'll stop. Well, I only had that happen once. Every other encounter I had after that, it was like tough crap. You're going to have to put up with it.
And you've had what, 8 different beings that you've dealt with?
Oh God, yeah, 8 or 9. There's a lot of them.
Wow.
Yeah,
That,
the grays. There was a kind of there was what looked like grays that I saw on another ship that I was on that had kind of a light blue hue color to them. And then the there was like they looked like grays, but they were tall. They were like 6.5 foot tall.
Okay.
And they were wearing what looked like white robes from their neck down. And I had a encounter with a reptilian once here at the house
Wow.
where I live. And then these real small gray looking creatures are only like about 2 foot tall. They pop in every now and then in my living room or in my bedroom. I'll notice them. But yeah, there was quite a few different beings.
And you've had a lot of out-of-body experiences as well. Can you tell the difference between an out-of-body experience and when you're on the ship?
It felt the same to me. Um, it's hard to describe. Um, it's almost like a surreal type feeling.
You think they
Um,
could be related?
what's that?
You think the two phenomena could be related?
I think they are.
Yeah.
I really do. And then my two near-death experiences I've had
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
are,
talk to you about today. Just one thing before we get to near-death experience is to point out to people you're an artist. So you do cartoon art and stuff. I mean, you're pretty good at recreating what you see. You're good at detail and stuff in
yeah,
terms of being an
the,
artist. You're not just somebody off the street. So you're pretty
yeah,
good at that kind of stuff.
yeah. I love cartoons. I always wanted to be an animator,
Yeah.
but my dad pushed me into being a mechanic.
Yeah. So let's get into the near-death experience thing, because that was why we wanted to have this interview. I wanted to get it on the record. But first, describe your sort of health situation and this thing, the 5-year thing that puts you sort of in a category where you're sort of different than most experiencers, where you have a situation with your health and how that fits into what we're going to talk about here.
Okay. Okay. First, I need to do a little backstory a little
Yeah.
bit. I'll try not to make it too long.
Yeah.
But years ago, as I was growing up, even after we moved to Utah, I was real active outdoors, climb
Yeah.
mountains, go hiking all day, 2 days.
Yeah.
Uh, and then it was right around 2016, I started getting real tired when I'd go out and I'd lay down and go to sleep while I was out hiking, just
Yeah.
flop down on the ground and go to sleep. And then I was go with, a lot of times I'd go with my friends out hiking and I would get tired and I'd pass out in the vehicle
Mhm.
where we were going. And he used to tease me a lot about it. And then the last time I went out hiking with him, he told me, he says, you need to go see a doctor. He says, there's something wrong. And we went up Bates Canyon in the Ochre Mountains. And I couldn't even keep up with him. And there was a big boulder there. And I told him, I says, go ahead and hike up the canyon and I'll just wait for you here. And I just laid on that rock and I must have been out for like 3 hours.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they came back and woke me up and then we left. But it must have been quite a sight for other people to see me laying there. They probably thought I was dead. But I've always had asthma, even when I was a little kid,
Okay.
and I still have it. And I would go to the hospital here in Price, the emergency room, because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to breathe, and I'd just get real tired. And this went on and on. We'd call 911. They would come down, put oxygen on me, but they would always end up saying, "Oh, it's just you're having a panic attack. you're having a panic attack. That was always the problem.
Yeah.
And then when I'd get to the hospital, they would usually all they do is give me an albuterol treatment for like 2 hours and then send me home saying there's nothing wrong with you other than your asthma.
Yeah.
Well, this went on for years. And then one day I had a mild heart attack and I was having a hard time breathing. And so I ended up at the hospital. I drove myself to the hospital on this trip.
Wow.
Got chewed out for doing that.
Yeah.
But when I got there, I think I was there, they were giving me an albuterol treatment, and the emergency room doctor came in and told me that your asthma is acting up again and we'll send you home here shortly. And so another doctor came in, another emergency, and he told me, he says, you don't have a asthma problem, you have a heart problem. That's what's causing this.
Mhm.
And so I went home thinking about this. And then I had another mild heart attack and ended up back in the emergency room. And they told me, they said, there's nothing we can do for you. You do have a heart problem. So they shipped me to Intermountain Hospital in Provo, Utah. And that's where my first NDE started.
Okay.
That
So
I
what would be the
had.
date on this?
Oh, this was back in 20. I got the exact date in my medical files, but it was back, I think, right around May of 2019.
Okay.
And anyways, they sent me by ambulance from Price to Provo, which is about approximately 80, 85 miles to the
Okay.
hospital from where I lived.
Okay.
And when I got there, they had me in the intensive care room for 3 days.
Wow.
Had tubes and all kinds of crap hooked up to me. And after 3 days, they said, there's nothing we can do for you. He says, you need a heart specialist. And he says, we're going to ship you to the Intermountain Hospital in Murray, Utah. They have a heart clinic there. And he says, they'll be able to help you. He says, we can't, there's nothing we can do for you here. And he said, we're going to send you by helicopter because this is serious.
Yeah.
And but my blood pressure was dropping and it kept dropping down into the mid 60s.
Wow.
And they said, we can't stabilize you, so we're probably going to have to ship you by ambulance because you won't be able to survive the high altitude.
Yeah.
And so after a while, after about, seemed like about 3 or 4 hours, they finally came in and says, we got an ambulance here. We have to ship you by ambulance. And I was just so tired. I didn't, I just felt like I wanted to go to sleep forever. And
Were you fearing death at that moment in terms of your situation?
feeling what?
Were you fearing death at that moment?
No,
No.
no, not
Okay.
at all. I've never had a fear of dying. The fear I have is how I die.
Yeah.
But anyways, so they loaded me up in the ambulance and they took off. And the attendant was trying to keep me awake. And I kept, passing out. Then he'd wake me up and I'd pass out all the way up there. And then when we got up, it was right about where interstate, where 215 takes off from Interstate 15 in up by Murray, Utah. It was pretty close to the hospital. I finally passed out,
Okay.
and all I can remember is the attendant telling the driver, "Hurry up, get to the hospital quick." He says his blood pressure is dropping.
Oh,
And so the next thing I remember is I remember a real small section of being wheeled into the emergency room through the doors.
mhm.
And I can remember somebody saying room 3. And then that time I passed out for good.
Okay.
And the next thing I remember is I felt myself rising, but everything was black, everything was dark. And I felt myself rising up into the air. And I just kept moving and moving. And I could hear Mr. Johnson, "Wake up, Mr. Johnson, go to sleep." And it just kept getting fainter and fainter. And then pretty soon everything was dead silent. There wasn't any noise. The pain in my chest was gone. I wasn't breathing, but it felt perfectly natural. It did.
Mhm.
It felt as natural as walking, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
And so I kept feeling myself rising. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was in space, up in space, like where Elby took me.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of floating there. I don't have a body. All I am is just pure consciousness.
Okay.
No arms, no legs. Uh, and I just feel perfectly fine, you know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to stay there. And then off in the distance, there was this larger bright light, and I started moving towards it. And I was going and I was thinking, oh my gosh, and the feeling of love started hitting me. There was no feeling of regret, no feeling of pain, nothing, just pure love. And the closer I got to this light, the more intense this love feeling was became. And it got so intense that I don't think in a human body you could stand it. And as I got close, I knew that it was the glory of God that I was moving towards. And I'm getting closer and I can't wait. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to get there.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I come to a stop and then I start moving backwards. And I said, no, 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 no. I don't want to go back. I want to continue. And I kept going back away from it, away from it. And after so long of going back, then I started feeling going down. And as I was starting to go down, I could I could hear the faint voices, real faint. "Mr. Johnson, don't go to sleep. Stay awake, stay awake." And it was weird. It was like I just started shaking all over.
Wow.
And what it was the nurse was shaking me to
Oh,
wake me up. And pretty soon, then I come back down, and it was all dark. There was no light. There was no white tunnel, anything
yeah.
like what most people
Yeah.
experience. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in my body, and I can feel my chest hurting, and I was grasping for air. I couldn't, even though I had, oxygen on. And that was it, basically.
Wow. And so they give you a time limit. So what did they give you? And then you told them, I'm coming, it's not going to happen. Didn't they only give you a couple months to live?
Um, who was that?
Yeah, you had the thing about the 5-year thing where they said, you said you only have a certain amount.
Oh,
Yeah, that whole
Yeah,
story.
yeah. Well, that happened after my second NDE when
Okay.
I was in the hospital having my pacemaker put in.
Okay, so tell that story then, the second near-death experience.
Okay. It was about 1 month after that. I had called my sister and she lost her job in Seattle. And so she came down to be with me.
Okay.
And one night we were watching TV, got through eating, and I think I had another heart attack, is what it felt like. And then all of a sudden, it was just, I passed out and my chest hurt, couldn't breathe. And the same thing, I felt myself rising up, but it was dark, it was black. I couldn't see the room I was in or anything. And I just kept going up and up and up. And then I found myself up in outer space again. I could see all the stars around. And what's weird is in this, when you're just as energy or oh fart, what am I trying to think of? Anyways, I'm up there. I'm not in a body. All I am is just
Your essence, like your
yeah, just an essence. There's
yeah,
no arms, no legs.
yeah.
Uh, all I can do is think. Uh, but you can see everywhere. I could see behind me,
Oh,
above
so
me,
you could see that 360 degrees.
360 degrees up,
Wow.
down, and I could see inside myself.
Wow.
It was really, really peaceful. And the feeling of love was just, it was stronger than the first time. But this time I'm at the light and this big, huge, round light, it looks like a giant sun. And all I have to do is just step into it. And I'm trying to, that's what I want to do. I know it's the glory of God, it's God's kingdom, and I want to be there. And it was just so overwhelmingly love. I mean, there was no feeling of hate, remorse, anything. The only emotion you can feel is love.
Wow.
And it was so strong that I don't think anybody in a human body could withstand it.
Wow.
And this telepathic voice tells me that you have to go back. It's not your time yet. The typical
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
back,
Yeah.
And so I start moving back and I'm just pleading and begging to go, to keep going.
Yeah.
And I just go back and back and back. And then I raise or descend back down into the darkness and then back into my body. And then I find myself laying on the couch in the living room here at my house. The paramedics are here and they're getting ready to take me out to the ambulance. And it was quite a feeling.
Wow. Now, you had these experiences, and you're a devout Mormon. Have you discussed this with the church, and what was the reaction to the near-death experience stuff?
Uh, they told me that the people I talked to said that you must have a special relationship with Jesus Christ. And
Maybe you do.
I think I do. And that there's going to be some wonderful things that you're going to experience when you get on the other side. That's what they tell me. But, all this alien encounters that I've been having, at first, I was trying to hide it from the church. because I didn't quite know how they were going to react to it.
Yeah.
And then one day in California, the members of the stake wanted to talk to me. And that's what it was about. And I was totally shocked. I was, they were in tune to it so much.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, I lost my fear of trying to hide it, and I don't hide
Beautiful.
it anymore.
Beautiful. And I think
But
that's what they want you to do. Do you think have you ever been told that they want you to put this out, that they want you to tell people your story?
yeah, a couple of them told me that you need to write a book, you need to get this out for people to read.
Yeah.
And there's, I get a lot of people, as soon as I mention religion, they they start to shy away from me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because God, Jesus is part of this.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but I know they are.
Yeah. But it's hard if you haven't had the experience, I would say that once you have the experience, then you know. There's a difference
Right.
between believing and knowing. Only the
Yeah.
people who've had the experience know.
Yeah.
Pull your camera up a little bit so that we can see your gut. Um, there you go. There you go. Okay, good. There we
Oh,
go.
I'm sorry. Was
No,
my
that's
head?
okay. That's okay. Maybe it's slipping down. Now,
Oh,
related to this, and I say, and Chris Bledsoe says, and a lot of people are now saying this is going to end up being religious, spiritual. In the end,
yes,
this is what it's all about. You came to the world to
absolutely.
do something, you're going to leave. So you had another experience that maybe I wanted, for people who haven't heard it, talk about LB takes you to the spirit world. So talk about that whole thing. And this is a connection when I say to people, you don't think there's a connection, these are the stories that you'll have these direct experiences that
Right.
match.
There, it is part of the story, and they are related. They
Yeah.
feel the same.
Yeah.
But years ago, it was right after I started having these encounters with LB in 2008.
Yeah.
I was going to church, and then I started. I knew that in James in the Bible that if you want to know something, ask God.
Mhm.
Just come out and ask Him. So I started praying and asking God to. I'd like to see the mysteries that you have, the mysteries. I'd like to experience some of the mysteries of God,
Yeah.
and I would pray about it, meditate on it.
Was this before LB showed up?
This was about the time LB showed up.
Okay. Okay. So maybe that was your answer.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's things really started to blossom for me after then. Telekinesis experiences. I could always, ever since I was a little kid, I could always see spirits.
Okay.
But I mean, it just started blossoming right after that.
Okay.
Uh, Black shadow people, spirits, animal spirits.
Wait, let me ask you a question. The shadow people, have you ever seen the guy with the hat? The shadow
No.
person with the
Oh,
hat?
one time,
Okay.
I was doing an astral projection
Okay.
right here by my computer on the floor.
Okay.
And this is what before my sister was here, when I was living here by myself. And there was a guy in a truck. He had a real noisy exhaust, and I was just starting to leave my body, and he come by revving his engine and kind of snapped me out of it. And as I'm laying there, there's this big shadow person right here between me and the wall. And it looked like he was wearing a hat. That's the only time I ever saw one that looked like he had a hat on. But oh, anyways, back to my story.
Yeah.
Okay, I was doing an astral projection on the couch, and I successfully left my body, and I was up above, kind of above the house looking down, and I could see through the roof of the house. I could see me laying on the couch, and I could hear Elby's voice. And he asked me, he says, "Would you like to go see the what you call heaven or the afterlife?" And I said, "Yes, I would." And so everything kind of blacks out. And then I come to, I'm in this beautiful garden. Elby's not with me. And there's this rock wall and what looks like a pathway going through. And I'm standing there watching this and just thinking to myself how amazing this is, how beautiful it is. The colors were so vibrant. They were alive. It's like everything was alive. And then pretty soon my mom shows up. My mother, she had died back in, I think it was 2002.
What
And
age was she when she showed up? Like, what did she look like?
she looked like she was in her early 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s.
Okay. Okay.
And off in the distance, we started moving towards this, what looks like a little mini Mormon temple, like the one in Manti, Utah, but it was real small. And we go over to it, and she takes me inside. And this darn thing is like 15, 20 times bigger inside than it is on the outside.
Wow.
And
Have you ever had that experience with being in the ship? Some people
no,
describe that, that is bigger on the inside than it is outside. How big was the ships that you were on? Were they huge in terms
it
of?
was huge. It was big. It could hold a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was on another ship with LB, but it was a little teardrop shaped
Wow.
ship. There was only like room enough for me and him on this.
Did it had that
And
one have a motor? Or did you see any engine or anything like
I
that?
didn't see nothing,
Yeah.
but I sure felt the G-force when we accelerated.
And
And
did you
that,
ever see engines on any of the crafts? You're a mechanical guy that
nothing,
never?
nothing. Everything looked like it was injected, molded, one piece. There was no rivets, no seams, nothing.
Yeah. And what color? White?
Black,
Black. Okay.
black, just shiny. It looked like black porcelain
Okay.
or very, very polished plastic.
Okay. So you're with your mother. Do you walk to this little temple or do you sort of
No, we
move
kind
there?
of glided along,
Guided along. Okay.
and we go inside, and there are these big pillars. It looks like they go up for like 30 feet, but
Wow.
on the outside, this building's only like maybe 10 feet high. It's weird.
Yeah.
And in between these pillars was these look like paintings, and each painting between the pillars was a scene out of my mom's life.
Wow.
And she told me, "Your dad has a room like this, and this portal opens up, and I can look into this other room like the one I'm in. I can see my dad in there." And he says, "Your grandmother has a room like this." And then
Oh, he
another
talked to
port.
you?
What's that?
Your dad was talking to you as well?
No,
Oh, just your
no,
mother.
they
Okay.
didn't talk to me. It just opened up enough for me to see inside.
Okay.
Then it closed up.
Okay.
And the same thing happened with my grandmother. And then we glided on down to the other end of this big room.
Yeah.
And there was a table down there, and it had these crystals sticking up.
So there's a wooden table?
It looked like a wooden table,
Okay. Okay.
but what it was, I couldn't say,
Yeah.
just other than what it looked like. And there was these crystals sticking up, and my mom told me that each crystal has the entire life of a relative, of a friend that you knew, of somebody that you knew, and the smaller ones had the entire life of, animals that you intermixed with, dogs, cats that you had for pets, like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know why, but at that time I thought of the dog we had when we moved to Utah, because just one day he just disappeared,
Yeah.
and we never knew what happened to him. And I didn't even have to. I no more than thought this, and this crystal come up over in front of my face, and it was like a watching a movie.
Okay.
I saw this dog. We had a Keys Hound dog when we moved to Utah, and like I said, he come up missing one day, and this crystal showed me his entire life from birth to death, and I found out what happened to him. He had went over to the neighbor's house across the street. He had chickens back there.
Oh
And
yeah.
he got mad. He went out, he had a 12 gauge shotgun, and he shot the dog.
Wow.
And instead of telling us about it, he threw it in the back of his truck. It was still alive.
Oh,
Took it to the dump and threw it in the animal pit. Then it died later in the
oh
animal pit.
goodness. Unbelievable.
And it just, I don't know, it just made me want to cry when
Yeah.
I saw that.
But your crystal wasn't there. What did your mother say about that?
No, she didn't say anything about that, but see, I haven't talked to you about this. I had an uncle that was LDS,
Okay.
and I was real close to him. He lived in California,
Okay.
and he started appearing to me after this, and he would take me to this same place, it was a different temple looking building, but it had these same crystals in it, but they were everywhere. It looked like they went up forever, for eternity.
Okay.
And he says, we have to record your life. And this crystal come down, and it would go inside my spirit, inside
Okay.
me.
Okay.
And then it would come back out, and he says, we're done. Tomorrow we'll continue and finish it. And so it's weird. It's like I pass out and then wake up in bed. And then the next night, when I went to bed, the same thing happened again. My uncle came, took me back there into this big building that had all these crystals. And he says, we have to finish, and this has to be done. And another crystal come up and entered into me. And he says, we're finished now. That's weird. I never told you about that.
Yeah. Is that in your book?
I mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got permission from, well, it's hard getting permission from people to use their names.
Well, you just changed their name, just offered to change their name. That's what I did
Yeah,
with my first book. I changed all the names because they were
that's what
all
I
dead.
had
And they
to
wanted
do
me
with
to go
that.
get permission from all these people. I said, they're all dead. It's like 40, 50 years ago, man. It's like,
But yeah, but I still have some strange experiences. I'm seeing spirits ever since they told me when I was in the hospital. They told me I had a left bundle branch block,
yeah.
and the electrical signals from my brain going to my left ventricle, they're not making it through the heart to the left ventricle. So they had to put a pacemaker and run wires from the pacemaker on the outside of my heart over to the left ventricle
Wow.
to keep me alive. And then I had to be on this, I had to carry this backpack with me,
Mhm.
and I had this IV drip. that I had to change every day. And I had these PICC lines going into my arm, and it went up and then into my heart.
Wow.
And they said, without that, you'll die. And then they said, we need to do a heart transplant. They tried to talk me into doing a transplant. And they took me over and showed me some patients that just got through with a heart transplant. But first I had to put a mechanical pump in first. And they told me what the process was. And I told them I don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah. But you've gotten better. You've got some sort of healing, maybe.
Well, they told me when I left the hospital that my ejection ratio was between 10 and 12. And they says you will not make it past. This is the second doctor in charge of the heart clinic.
Okay.
He told me that you will not make it past July. And this was back in 2019.
Mhm.
And here I am,
Have you
still
prayed for
alive.
healing? Have you prayed for healing?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. And what about this one when Albie comes and says, the next time I'm taking you home? Tell that story. Did you tell that story?
Well, after my second near-death experience,
Yeah.
they made an appointment for me to have my pacemaker put in. So I went up there and I was in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. And they put the pacemaker in. And it was right after they put the pacemaker in. I was in the intensive care unit. And it was weird. I was laying there and everything turned a real bright, fuzzy white. I could just barely see. And I knew there was somebody in the room, but I couldn't tell who it was. And they were talking to me telepathically, and he says, "This is LB," and I kind of knew it because I know his energy.
Okay.
And he says, "I'm here to tell you that the next time you see me, it'll be I'm here to take you home." I don't know if LB if he's the angel of death. I don't know. I have no idea who he is. I'm trying to relate all this to my religion,
Yeah.
and
Do
it's
you believe you're on a
connected.
mission? Do you believe you have a mission in life that you came here to do something?
I do, but I have no idea what it is, unless it has something to do with this,
Yeah,
like
I
writing the
think, I
book.
mean, because you're pretty unique in terms of your experience, in terms of the
Yeah,
experiences that you've had and how you can link the spiritual to the physical and the flying of the ship, which now is being, I don't know if you know, the government has actually admitted now that there is a psychic component to
yeah,
moving the ship around.
yeah,
So it's verifying your story that you told me
yeah,
years ago already.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that story you tell of I think it's the government people, and they're saying, yeah, if you know about ESP,
Yeah.
then you know how the chip works.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly how it works.
Yeah. And that's sort of like the disclosures coming now. And that moves us more to the thing where it's not just nuts and bolts, that in
No,
the end, you're going to find out it's going to be very much spiritual. And that's why I tell people, get your going to church clothes ready because we're going back. It's
yeah,
like people want that out of the way. And you're never going to solve it until you talk to people like you.
right.
You can, you know that. You can look at all the lights in the sky you want. And
Yeah,
all it's going to tell you is something's going on. But if you want to know what's going on, you have to talk to people like you. And they
yeah,
still haven't got there where they've given you any respect in terms of talking to you, but that time will come.
right. It is. It's like I got lots of pictures of UFOs, but so what? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. And you've got all these
this is more
like
important.
yeah, and you've got a broad story like you did the the one where you had the photograph of the you're in the grave, the talking to the crypt, and the thing comes out, and the hitchhiker, where the thing followed you
Yeah,
around for 5 years, and you've had Sasquatch experiences. You've had a
yeah,
pretty broad
I have.
number of experiences in terms of paranormal material,
Yeah,
and that's why I call it managing magic. It's
yeah.
magic. It's not really UFOs. It's all this stuff.
I've asked, I've prayed, I've meditated for this to happen.
Wow.
In as uh, um, as mysteries of God,
Oh yeah.
and I really do believe it. It is part of His mysteries, and
Wow.
someday we're going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is probably an obvious question, but if you had to do it all over again, would you take the same route?
Yes,
Yeah. Because you hear all this stuff, well, this is terrible and all this sort of stuff.
yeah.
And then you ask people, and maybe the first experience is very traumatic.
The first time it was. Uh, See, I had experiences when I was a little kid, like 2, 3, 4 years old,
Yeah.
that I've never meant even talk to you about.
Yeah. Wow. And what about your sister? You've had some experiences with your sister, right?
Yeah,
But
I've had some of my out of body experiences had my sister in it.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, and what's weird is there's Mary Rodwell
Yeah.
and the one from California. What's her name?
Barbara Lamb.
Barbara Lamb. Barbara Lamb. I've been to two of her support groups,
Okay.
and two of them in the one support group, I met a guy from Wyoming, and he come out when it was all over with, and he stopped me out in the hallway. This was at the IUFOC conference,
Okay.
and he says, "This is going to sound crazy, but he says you were with me in one of my abductions."
Wow.
I said, "Are you sure?" He says, 100% sure. And then the next year, I went to Mary Rodwell's, not Mary Rodwell's, but oh
Barbara
gosh,
Lamb. Uh,
Barbara Lamps
yeah.
a
Yeah.
second time.
Yeah.
And there was an older woman there that says, "I saw you, you were with me on a ship once." I
You've been
said, "It's
around.
very possible, very possible."
Wow. It's just a fascinating story, and I've got actually an interview request. Somebody wants to interview you from Australia. You'd be up for that?
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. So I think
I
our
want to,
story's starting to pick up, and especially if you do the book, then I will
yeah,
try to get you on a bunch of things because it is a very important story, and you already feel that they want you to share the story, and
yeah,
it's a fascinating thing, and you can actually back it up with art in terms of LB and
yeah,
the be interested to see the writing because as you've seen, this is a big topic now, and it's like they discovered this, and it's like no, this has been going on for a long time. This Jake Barber, these people they saw writing on the craft, and it's like suddenly it's like they want to write themselves into history as if this is a
yeah.
new thing, and no, this has been going on for a while. And if you talk to experiences, you know that a lot of
Mm.
people have these experiences like the out of body experience and the near death experience. 37% of all experiencers have had a near death experience, and most of them, like you, that I've talked to, have had two. And so,
Oh,
what's the
yeah,
chances that that's random? And
yeah.
so,
Now that they're not as colorful as
yeah,
other people's near-death
yeah, yeah,
experiences, but it's still significant.
yeah. But you've had the one I think is more important was the one with your mother, where you're
Yeah,
with your mother, and this
yeah,
was initiated by the aliens. Which is,
yeah.
have you ever seen anything on the ship that's was peculiar? Like people will describe dead people on the ship or people stuff like
No,
that.
uh, I saw uh, live people
Okay,
in the cubicles when I was down there when
yeah.
LB was having me fly the ship. I'd glance up every now and then and I'd see them up there and they'd be up there looking down at me. So I'm sure, I don't remember it. I'm sure I was up there looking down on them too.
Yeah.
But
Was LB operating by himself when you had these experiences like flying the ship, or was there other beings
no,
there?
there was other beings on there. There
Looked like
was
LB?
just exactly like LB,
Is
spitting
that right?
image.
Wow.
And there was, what's weird is when I was up in the cubicle looking down, there was like another, it was like a big opening in a wall, and there was
Okay.
another room. And I was thinking, man, this is big. This is a
Yeah.
big ship.
Yeah.
And there was another being sitting at a console and in a chair like the one I was in, except for they were facing the other direction.
Okay.
And I could tell, I knew that that was a female. I don't know why, but I knew it was a female.
Yeah. Is there a sense of essence? I think I've experienced this as well, where it's a feeling you just know you can't, and it's like
You
almost like
know,
there's a vibration. Like when
yeah,
LB's coming, you know it's LB because you know that's
yeah,
LB.
yeah. See, I used to, before LB would show up, I would see these big white spheres. I've got pictures of them.
Wow.
Uh, I've seen literally hundreds of them.
Wow.
And this sphere came and landed close to the house in Price where I live.
Okay.
And I knew LB was coming. I knew it. And he did. I had an encounter that night, one of my encounters where he took me to look at uh, symbols.
Yeah. How many encounters do you think you've had with LB that you can remember?
Probably 10,
Okay.
maybe 12.
There you go.
Yeah.
And when was your last experience?
Oh my gosh. Um, I see him a lot in dreams. He
Okay.
told me right after I got out of the hospital that from now on, I won't come to you uh, physically until I come and take you home.
Okay.
I will come to you as a dream. I'll either come to you as a deer or a wolf. And he says, you're having a hard time accepting me, is what he said. I accept him,
Yeah.
but it's it's hard to explain. It's hard for me to accept something like that.
Yeah.
But I've had it happen so many times. It's almost second nature now.
Wow. So you've had a lot of dream. Did you write your dreams down?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I
But they're
should
more
start
vivid,
again.
right? You can remember them. They're vivid
Oh
and you
yeah,
can.
some of them are very vivid.
So
I
let's
had I
let
had
let's.
one.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I had one where I went to this big room. Everything was real bright, fuzzy. I could barely see. And in this room, there was spirits kind of gliding all over and congregating. And there was a door standing by itself in the middle of this room. And this one spirit took me over to the door and opened the door. My dad was standing there.
Wow.
And this was right after my dad died
Wow.
because I kept asking and praying if he was all right.
Yeah.
And he was. They assured me he's okay.
Wow. So to close it down, what would you say to people who are sort of just getting into this and having experiences and are fearful? And how do you sum up the whole UFO situation in terms of your understanding? You may not know all of it, but what you can share with people that's important for them to know.
That's a tough question because I don't even understand it. Like I said, when LB talks to me, when he talked to me in the past, it was real vague. Uh, he wasn't explicit about things. Uh,
Okay.
all I can say is if you're having these experiences, uh, ask God, get down and pray to God, uh, ask Jesus, ask God in the name of Jesus Christ that you want to know the truth about this stuff. Is it true? Is it live or is it Memorex? You know,
Yeah.
had to throw that in.
Yeah.
And because you don't know, you know, there's certain questions you can ask, and if the spirit or the entity doesn't tell you, doesn't answer, then you got something to worry about. But if they respond in a positive way, uh, they're they're probably of God. I don't know. This is just all speculation to me,
Yeah.
but don't be afraid of it unless it has a bad feeling. Shun it if it feels evil. Um, I'm still trying to connect my religion and what's been happening to me, and I still have some work to do on it. Maybe that's what part of my job. It's what I got to
Yeah.
do.
And
But
I
I
think everybody's
also,
got that problem
I'll,
in terms of trying to figure it out.
yeah, yeah,
That they make you curious, that you dig for the answers.
right,
And if you weren't curious, that's why I would say if there's not awe and curiosity, you don't do any research. You got it all figured out. But
yeah,
it's these weird things, and you're trying to figure what's going on, and they're dragging you almost like with breadcrumbs towards the answer.
yeah. It's like in the Bible and the Book of Mormon. They talk in riddles, in parables,
Yeah,
and it's hard to understand what they're
yeah,
saying. You really have to be careful how you read it to try to get anything out of it.
yeah.
And but don't if you're having these experiences, don't walk away from God. Don't walk away from Jesus. Uh, I I still put God and Jesus first in my life,
Yeah.
even with all these experiences, and I always will. And I'll never deny them too. I'll never deny him or the Holy Ghost. Any of them. If people get mad, they can get mad, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah. And you've got experiences to sort of back up the fact that you know you've dealt with it. You're not
Right.
talking because you read something or you thought it. Who cares what you think? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
the idea of belief. You can take all the belief in the world and a
Yeah.
dollar and you can't buy a cup of coffee. So
Yeah.
it's the experience that's important. So I've been honored to know you, and just wonderful story. And I hope your book gets out. Are you still
Oh,
planning to get the book?
I am. It's just, I got all the encounters written down in chapters, but I made a mistake and I left my church experiences out.
Okay.
And I'm trying to blend the two together.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make anybody mad. And if I do, I'm sorry, but that's the way it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that comes out. If you need any help, we'll help you. And we're even using AI now to look over stuff, and they can sort of edit for you. You put it in
Yeah.
one chapter into AI, and this what do they call it now? Deep Seek.
Yeah.
We put it in there, and it'll sort of edit the grammar and stuff like that. And it's quite good. So we get that, and I've got this one interview I'm going to set up for you, and you never know, Whitley may want to talk to you as well. So we'll
Oh,
get it
well,
going,
yeah,
because
that'd be
you
fine.
got an important story that everybody needs to hear in terms of a lot of experience, a lifetime of experiences, and I think it's a very important story. So thanks for sharing with me,
Yeah.
and hopefully I can get down to Utah and see you. And I'm glad your health is improving,
Yeah.
where
Well,
you'll
they
be
say
around
it
for a while.
is, but I'm still having trouble breathe. Like last night, I had a hell of a time breathing.
Wow.
But
But you've got the oxygen and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get keep praying, and hopefully we get some more movement? Because maybe they're keeping you alive to get your book out, and then
I
they'll
think
come and
so.
get you.
I think so.
Okay.
You and God has been working on me on
Yeah.
that.
'Cause, I mean, you never know. You may live long enough where I go before you, and then I have to come see you because
Oh,
you always
God.
promise me you're going to come see me. So maybe,
I have been trying to get LB to come visit you.
yeah, I think there's something happened, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, yeah, I would love that. I mean, one of the things is I got a message was Grant doesn't need to see because he already knows.
He
So
knows.
there was
Yeah,
that
exactly.
that may be what it is that
Yeah,
that's not my mission to because I've never had any sort of experiences like you. I've had different experiences.
yeah,
And so that's my mission is
yeah,
putting it's almost like to who much is given, much is expected. So
yeah.
you and I have been given more than the average person in terms of like most people live lives of quiet desperation. They have no clue what's going on.
Oh, I
And you and
know.
I
I
have knowledge, but if you got much, then you're expected to share it and you're expected to use it.
I don't know why, but I feel like a grandmaster for some reason. And
Yeah.
I'm instead of dumber than a box of rocks.
Wonderful. Well, okay, let's stay in touch and I'll send you an email and I'd like to see those symbols and maybe even a photograph of the white orb because I had those in 76. I want to
Oh,
compare
okay.
that to what I saw in 76, which
Yeah,
is what started me down the road. And I don't know what it was, but I was pretty close to it, I'll tell you. So
yeah.
it's interesting. And again, thanks for the friendship we've had over many decades. And hopefully we can have many more interviews to come and share with the world what we think is important to what this thing is all about.
If anybody figures it out, it'll be you.
Yeah, well, with your help. I mean, that's where I've always said to people, you've got to talk to the experiencers. Forget everything else. Talk to the experiencers and talk to the people who claim that they're talking to, other beings or whatever, channeling or whatever. I think you got to listen to all this stuff. And there are people who it's almost like music. There are people who can play a couple of notes of music. There are people who can play music, and then there's people who are grandmasters and prodigies, and
Right.
that's what you're looking for. The people like you who are
Yeah.
better than just playing, Mary Had a Little Lamb on the piano. You can do a little more than that. So
Yeah.
thanks again, Ron, and let's talk again soon.
Okay, we'll do that. Looking
Beautiful.
forward.
You bet.
Bye-bye.